Hello, everybody, and welcome to Coffee with Kenobi show number 158. We are your spoiler-free place for Star Wars discussion, analysis, and rhetoric. Today is part one of a very special two-parter from Coffee with Kenobi. We are live with a number of my mythology students as they share their observations on our unit experiencing these Star Wars films, and what an amazing ride it has been. They have been tremendous, and I'm very excited to share this with you. I am your host, Dan Z, handing over the microphone to these outstanding students as they will, in groups of four, be responsible for a 5-minute segment to discuss something from the Star Wars universe that they think is worthy of further analysis. I am seriously so proud of their hard work, and I'm very excited to share this show with each and every one of you. Here we go.
Listening to Coffee with Kenobi, you are the podcast you're looking for. This is...
Hi, this is Kevin Vincent from Coffee with Kenobi, and today I'm joined by your co-hosts Krista, Grant, and Elizabeth. Our topic for the show is Anakin's foreshadowing of evil. We will first start off with my question of how Anakin's relationship with close ones have foreshadowed that he will change to the dark side. Your guys' viewpoints on this subject?
I believe that this first started with his mother after he had to leave his planet to end up becoming a Jedi Knight. And him doing that, he eventually has nightmares of his mother, and he believes that she's in great danger. He then goes back to his home planet to find that she had been bought by a new master who had eventually freed her and married her. He finds the new master, and he says to Anakin that his mother had been kidnapped by sand people, and they had given up hope in finding her. Anakin then sets out to find his mother, and when he does, he finds her half alive, and she ends up dying in his lap. His anger for finding his mother dead leads him to hate the Sand People, which leads him to murdering all of them, including women and children.
That was an excellent viewpoint. Quoting Yoda, fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering. I believe that fear started off with him leaving his mother on Tatooine, and then him angrily towards the Sand People, that leads him to hate the Sand People, to murdering them, which then leads him to suffering, because he knows that is not the Jedi way.
Yeah, I completely agree. His fear of him leaving as a child, his mother on Tatooine, is also a part of that, but I believe his fear of losing his mother on Tatooine and not being able to see her again, that's why he goes back to her, and then when he finds her dead, that angers him, and then he kills all the Sand People, and then his hatred of the Sand People causes him to suffer because he was like, oh my gosh, I did kill all these people, and now that's not the Jedi way.
Right. Now we move on to our next question. Elizabeth?
In Revenge of the Sith, the last meeting between Obi-Wan and Anakin, before the final battle, Anakin stands in the dark while Obi-Wan stands in the light. Why did the directors choose to foreshadow Anakin and Obi-Wan in this way? What are your guys' opinions?
I believe that it's showing his confusion on the Jedi Council, whether or not he believes in their way, if he thinks that their way is right, or if he believes the dark side is right, due to Palpatine brainwashing him and making him believe the Jedis are trying to take over.
I agree with that. I say that Anakin has been lost and confused throughout the entirety of the movie, and he's really unsure of the Jedi Council, and he's also unsure of Palpatine because he doesn't know who to trust, and he's really worried about losing Padme in childbirth. So that causes him to sway to both sides. But when he's shown in the dark, I think that shows the audience that he will eventually make his final choice and go to the dark side.
Yeah, I agree with that statement.
All right, and now on to the next question.
Why is it symbolic when Anakin had crossed the red and blue lightsaber at Count Dooku before killing him?
Well, I think that the crossing shows how he has both in his hands. He has both the light and dark side of the Force at the same time, and the crossing is he's crossing the path, and he's just trying to decide which one to pick.
I was thinking of it as he's conflicted. He's having conflicted emotions on whether or not he wants to turn to the dark side and actually murder Count Dooku, or if he's I pretty much said it's inner conflict with the dark and light side, and which he doesn't know which one to decide.
Yeah, I agree on that too. I like how the directors did that too, crossing it over, because he's holding blue and red being the dark side, blue being the light side, obviously, but it shows his inner conflict and how he goes to the dark side eventually, but it's just his inner conflict.
All right, and then moving on to our final question, Grant.
Okay, so I've been looking forward to this. We're going to start with some background knowledge. Each prequel villain is a part of Vader. Darth Maul, as shown in the Clone Wars towards Obi-Wan, is pure hatred. Count Dooku leaves the Jedi Order, as does Anakin, and General Grievous is a machine, as Obi-Wan says about Vader, more machine than man. So my question is, how would this foreshadowing and symbolism be different if the episodes were in numeric or chronological order? Well, I'd say most likely they wouldn't even exist. However, if they did, they would be nowhere near as specific. I say this because George Lucas, when making the original trilogy, was working in the moment, not knowing how the story would progress. For example, he didn't think about Luke and Leia even being siblings at the time of the kiss. And for the next one, it is, what do you guys think is more subtle similarities between the prequel villains and Darth Vader?
I think that is an excellent question. They added villains that foreshadowed what Darth Vader would be like, half machine. It shows that they put real thought into the villains and how it would lead up to Darth Vader and how bits and pieces of them fit into Darth Vader's natural look of him.
There is the fact that Sidious is always willing to throw away an apprentice in turn for a more powerful one, which also happens to be Vader, with his son Luke Skywalker as the new apprentice.
All right, as we're out of time, I thank you to everyone joining us on our mythology assignment. We will turn the microphone over to the next group.
Hello, this is Chris from Coffee with Kenobi. Today I'm joined by my co-hosts Kylie,
Hi.
Megan,
Hey.
and Paige.
Hello.
Our topic today is to discuss how Anakin Skywalker turned to the dark side and why. Also, how it influenced him to become dark from having a good, kind heart as a child and what mainly caused it. He was always so happy, and that is why we are here to talk about how this happy little boy turned to the dark side from all the pain he encounters. Now here is Megan to talk more about Anakin Skywalker.
Since Anakin was a young boy rescued from Tatooine, he was assumed to be a prodigy of the Force, but his future was clouded with the dark side according to the Jedi Council. He then begins his journey from boy to man under Obi-Wan's mentorship. He encounters love and loss and fear, all with his supernatural abilities and internal conflicts over right and wrong. What exactly happens to cause this major change from Anakin being on the fast track to becoming the ultimate Jedi Master to becoming the light side's worst nightmare? This discussion will cover some important topics and questions regarding Anakin's character development.
Some of our talking points will be his childhood warning signs, how his peers affected his personality, Anakin turning from the Jedi, and then how he got lured by the Sith.
Okay, my question is, do you think Anakin would have ended up as Darth Vader regardless of his background? What were the early signs during his childhood that went ignored and that could have changed the outcome?
Either way, he may have already had his future planned out since he was a child due to being a slave with exceptional intelligence. He had to defend and stand up for himself so young before being thrown into freedom without his mother. I think these tragedies really formed his personality abruptly and he became a victim of circumstance, regardless of his loving peers. If only he could have been a child for longer, I believe the outcome could have been different, I think. So, he was supposedly the chosen one, according to Obi-Wan. He was foretold to bring balance to the Force. Was this ever possible, or was this just wishful thinking?
I think this was possible. He was supposed to become the chosen one, but due to everything he had to go through as a child, leading up to all his wrong choices, it was already destroying him from the inside. He always overcame these problems, but then people died on him that he loved, and it took the good parts of him with them when they passed. So my question is, Anakin expresses several desires that seemingly had no solution, but he was always so headstrong that he will achieve them somehow. What are some desires you noticed that posed as a red flag?
His desire to be the best Jedi was most concerning. He believed that he was more powerful than Obi-Wan, and he often told Padme he wanted to control the Senate. That was foreshadowing because he eventually does have control by fear over the people of the galaxy. When Emperor Palpatine or Darth Sidious told him that his desires are possible but only as the Sith, Was it like an unstoppable domino effect as Anakin turned to Darth Vader? Do you think anything could have changed his mind, or was it really just too late?
Well, I think it was almost too late for anything to save Anakin, but I also think if Obi-Wan knew what Palpatine was telling Anakin, he could have been able to save him because Obi-Wan was not only his master, he was basically a brother to him, so I believe Anakin would have trusted Obi-Wan on what the right thing to do was. And also, he cared too much for Padme and believed that he could save her through the dark side, even though I think that is what actually killed her because she could not follow him on the path that he was going, and so she lost the will to live. And that is how it all started shifting, and then there was no going back from that.
Okay, but how did Anakin get pressured by the Jedi and Sidious in Revenge of the Sith?
The Jedi were telling him to spy on the Chancellor, and at the same time the Chancellor was talking bad about the Jedi. Really, he was stuck in the middle, and he eventually only trusted the Chancellor because he could give him the power to save his wife, Padme. That was the most important thing to him in the end, and he had lost his mother. He didn't want to lose her, too.
Okay, but Padme was always there for Anakin. Was that a bad choice? Should she have seen him changing in a way, such as political views were changing?
I am a firm believer that love can make people blind. There are several scenes where Padme had been left out of the loop for whatever reason, having to fill in the blanks herself, and all she really knew was her love for Anakin. When Anakin is changing, she only hears about his flaws secondhand, but he appears to be the same boy that she knew and fell in love with when they meet in secret as a couple. He says a few things that would have been alarming, but she only sees it as personality flaws of his character that they can move past. Part of this is seeing and believing, and obviously she wouldn't want to believe that he committed atrocities because it goes against her vision of him and what she believes are shared values between them. This is why I don't believe she would have been able to change his mind.
So there is some food for thought. This has been Coffee with Kenobi. Now to the next group. Thank you for joining us.
Bye!
Hi, this is Colin from Coffee with Kenobi, and today I'm joined by your co-hosts Thomas, Kendall, and Ryan. Our topic for today's show is an in-depth look of Order 66 and the impact it had on the Star Wars universe.
Hi, this is Thomas. Today I want to analyze the conflict between the clones and the Jedi in Order 66. Why did Darth Sidious wait to execute Order 66? For example, when droids ordered by Count Dooku surround the Jedi, and Dooku offers a safe alternative in that if the Jedi surrender, they will live. But the Jedi fight back and the clones come in and pick up the Jedi.
That's a great question. My take of it was that Darth Sidious was most likely waiting for the Jedi to retaliate, and they knew they had the upper hand against the Jedi. So once the Jedis were divided amongst their ranks, I believe that Darth Sidious knew he could exterminate a large number of Jedi in a short amount of time.
I think Palpatine waited on the Order 66 because he wanted to see Anakin's lowest point, and he would be more vulnerable at that point in time to join the Sith and the dark side.
Yeah, and going off of that, I think if he acted too soon in trying to exterminate the Jedi, Anakin wouldn't have joined the dark side. I feel like if the Jedi would have been exterminated while Anakin was still on the side of the Jedi, he would have never joined the Sith. He would have wanted revenge for the Jedi.
Our next question is from Kendall.
So, Order 66 was a massacre with political agendas in mind. That was made obvious in the movie. I want to analyze how Order 66 shaped the political world of the Star Wars universe and the impact it had.
My take on this is Order 66 is the major event that brought down the Republic. Without the Jedi Council, the new Emperor has very little standing in his way to having complete control over the galaxy.
I believe it also caused the Republic to be a more corrupt system, and the people didn't really take the Jedi Order serious anymore.
I believe that it gave Sidious the power to change to an empire without the Jedi interfering, and basically he could do what he wanted.
What made Order 66 such a powerful movement, and what was the outcome of the order?
Order 66 was a plan waiting to get put in action. They just needed to find the right time for it. And once the time was right, Darth Sidious sent the order, and it resulted in the death of many Jedi Masters across the universe.
I believe it's just the fact that Palpatine was able to make it seem like the clones were just putting down an attempt by the Jedi to overthrow the Republic made it more powerful, because the people now didn't trust the Jedi. They had no faith in the Jedi. They thought the Jedi were the bad guys.
I personally think that the clones were all persuaded to the dark side, and without this, Order 66 would not have worked.
My major point for the show is all the clones turned against the Jedi without hesitation. How does this signify the power the dark side has?
This signifies the power of the dark side because they have enough power to persuade an entire army of clones over from the light side to the dark side to kill all the Jedi. And this amount of power is huge and concerning, especially because the dark side will be in control now.
And I think this also just really shows how devious and conniving the dark side truly is. Nobody suspected, in the beginning of the prequels, nobody suspected that the dark side would come back in such a way. They thought the Sith was long gone, extinct. Nobody believed that there was remaining Sith Lords behind any of this until it really started to take root.
Do you guys think that Order 66 was worth it, even though powerful Jedi like Yoda and Obi-Wan lived through it?
I believe it was worth it in the eyes of the Sith because they got a lot of Jedi Masters out of their way in their agenda, and a couple of stragglers here and there, even though they may be powerful Jedi Masters, they did still wipe out a large number of them.
Yeah, I think that it was definitely worth it for them.
Thank you. That's all the time we have today on an in-depth look of and the impact it had on the Star Wars universe. Stay tuned for more Star Wars mini segments. Please welcome your next co-host.
Hi, this is Joel from Coffee with Kenobi, and today I am joined by my amazing co-hosts, Todd, Amanda, and Noah. Our topic for today's show is, does Anakin Skywalker fulfill his prophecy? First question up today is, does the Chosen One, in this sense being Anakin, fulfill his prophecy? I think he does, because although he is now a Sith Lord, he does kill a lot of Jedi as well as the clones, leaving the Sith and the Jedi balanced out in the end.
Good point, Joel. But my answer is that no, Anakin himself doesn't and can't fulfill the prophecy because he ends up joining Emperor Palpatine on the dark side, and he ends up slaying the Jedi. He ends up needing outside help in order to complete it. He can't do it himself.
I agree with Joel. He did fulfill his prophecy because before there was Darth Vader, there was 400 plus Jedis and 2 Dark Sith. And when Darth Vader killed the kids and the clone army killed Jedis, there was only 2 Jedis and 2 Dark Sith left. So Obi-Wan believed that Annie was supposed to bring balance to the Force, as prophecy said, but Annie just wiped out the Jedi and joined the dark side.
Well, I understand the point of both Todd and Amanda. Joel and Amanda, I agree with Todd with the fact that he can't really complete the prophecy while he's a Sith Lord, and he needs the help of a later character, his son Luke, to become a Jedi again and be able to save and balance the Force.
Alrighty, that's it for question 1. Our next question up is, does Luke fulfill the prophecy? Now, I think Luke does fulfill his prophecy because although he does not kill Vader or Palpatine, Vader kills Palpatine and Palpatine kills Vader. Luke, he converts Vader back to the light side. So I think he fulfills his prophecy by converting his father, Anakin Skywalker, which is now Darth Vader, back to the light side before he dies, giving the Jedi an extra boost of assistance.
I have to agree with Joel on this one. What I was going to say was, and hitting on my point earlier, that Anakin himself, he couldn't fulfill the prophecy himself. So now that he has Luke, and Luke in turn turns Darth Vader back into Anakin essentially, they both in turn create balance in the Force. Luke is the actual helper that Anakin needed to complete his task in the prophecy.
I agree with Joel in what he said about how Luke saved his father from the dark side.
I agree with all 3 of them because as you pointed out, he needs the help of someone to complete his task and become the chosen one and bring balance to the Force. And as Yoda states in Return of the Jedi, you can't bring balance to the Force until there's no one left. He needs all of it to be gone because Jedi, the Sith, they all bring unbalance to the Force. And how this kind of like makes it so Luke is the only last Jedi, and that once he's dead, the prophecy's been fulfilled, and all the Force has been brought back to balance.
Alrighty, our next question up on the board is, how does Palpatine play a role in helping Anakin fulfill the prophecy? I think he does help him by convincing him or pressuring him enough to go and kill Luke, and Vader, being Luke's father, obviously thinks, no, that's not a good idea because it's my son. So he ends up turning on Palpatine and fulfilling his prophecy by turning back to the light side before his death.
I have to agree on Joel with this one because essentially, Palpatine essentially pushes Anakin to the point where it's like, yeah, this is my son. I'm not going to choose you over my own flesh and blood son.
I agree with Joel and Todd, and I really think that they are Darth Vader just didn't choose Palpatine over his son.
I have to agree with the group here. Is Palpatine did play an important role in helping Anakin fulfill his prophecy by forcing him, or not forcing him, but really enticing him to want to kill his son, which especially after him thinking he killed Padme, but in the first one, as we see, it makes him feel hurt and reminds him of how he was told that he killed Padme when he actually really kind of didn't, and this plays an important role in how he then turns on him and becomes a Jedi, helping Luke turn him back to the good side so that he can fulfill his prophecy.
And that's all the time we have for today, so thank you for everyone for joining Coffee with Kenobi. With us on our mythology segment, we will turn the microphone over to the next group. Thank you.
Hi, this is Brayden from Coffee with Kenobi, and I am joined by your co-hosts, Dylan, Brian, and Tate. And the main theme of this show will be how Sheev Palpatine rises to power within the prequels. Now, the talking point of this show is going to be Palpatine's character as a whole, the methods that he uses to rise from senator to ultimately emperor of the galaxy, and the influences of his character. With on that note, let us begin with the critical thinking questions.
All right, so first question. Which of Palpatine's characteristics were most important for his triumph?
Now, I believe that the two most important characteristics were his manipulation and his strategy. His manipulation is because he uses Anakin sort of to get rid of everyone that opposes him, and he slowly gains power and gains trust of someone within the Jedi. And then his strategy because he is the one who's planning the war with the trade and the actions of the Trade Federation and the Separatists. So if he can handle them, he is gaining the trust of the Republic as a whole, which allows him to gain power.
The next critical thinking question is, what is significant about Palpatine's lightning ability?
The significance about this is Thor's lightning that he possesses as a god, and if you put that into the story, it's kind of like showing that he has the god ability of having lightning shooting out of his fingertips, and he no one else really has seen it before, and it's kind of hard to go against.
Now, I would also like to add that it adds on to the Darth Plagueis story that you see in Revenge of the Sith, because in the story, Chancellor Palpatine, it talks about powers that are unnatural to the Jedi that only the Sith can have, and as we see with Palpatine's lightning, no one in the Jedi has that. So that can confirm that story, which allows Anakin to sort of have hope that the Sith really does have a lot of powers, and that there may be hope that he can save Padme if he does join the Sith and use their powers. Alright, so now the third question is, what could have been a mythological influence on the Palpatine's character?
I think an influence could have been Loki, just in the fact that he is deceitful and he uses tricks to get what he wants.
Alright, so our fourth one is, how is the timing of Anakin interrupting the Palpatine/Windu battle important to Palpatine's power?
I believe it gave Palpatine an interruption within the fight to give him a chance to get the upper hand against Windu. And when Anakin walked in, Windu was saying that they were both trying to get Anakin to go on their side, which is a choice between good and bad side for Jedis or a Sith. And Windu was saying that Palpatine was faking, and Windu said they're trying to take the Jedi Force was trying to take over, and I believe Anakin gave Windu the upper hand because Palpatine used his lightning ability to basically shock Windu and throw him out of the window.
Yeah, and also the thing that made Windu look really bad was he was going against the Jedi Order about not killing an innocent, like not innocent, but a man that has no
defenses.
Yeah, no defenses. Thank you. And so that's what made Anakin go more towards Palpatine's side at that time.
All right, so next up, do you believe Anakin saved Palpatine strictly out of friendship or sole desire to save Padme?
This is a tough one, but I do believe that it was out of the desire more so to save Padme, because Anakin, as he's seen throughout the trilogy, is that he will do anything to be with Padme because he loves her. That's the fact that they have the secret relationship with. So, after come this far with the secret relationship, at this point, he would do anything to save her because he loves her, and that's kind of where the Sith power, he believes, will help him out.
The next question is, what is the importance of the Darth Plagueis story?
All right, so I believe that the Darth Plagueis story, that's kind of the gateway to the Sith, because it talks about the stories of the powers that are unnatural to the Jedi, but the powers that is talked about are really important for Anakin that he may need to save the one he loves. But then Palpatine adds at the end, those last words, these powers cannot be obtained by a Jedi, so that gives Anakin some consideration that maybe the Jedi are not worth it and that he should flip over to the Sith. Alright, so next question. How does Palpatine use Padme to gain power?
Well, he influences Anakin to join the dark side by promising that Padme will not die if Anakin joins. And at this point, Anakin really only cares about Padme.
The next question is, what does Palpatine's relation with the other Sith Lords reveal about his character?
I believe it reveals that he was a bad person the whole time and he was just planning to take over for a while, that which gave him time to make up a really good plan, and with Anakin or Darth Vader now on his team, it basically just gave him the upper hand all the way.
I also want to add that it also shows that one of his characteristics is that he's willing to sacrifice others to gain his power, because he sends Darth Maul in the first movie, The Phantom Menace, to go and fight, which gets him killed, so that he has to find new apprentice. Then it goes to Count Dooku, as you've seen, which actually Palpatine himself orders Anakin to kill Count Dooku, which kind of gives him his hate, and then which he justifies him. And then General Grievous ends up being killed by Obi-Wan Kenobi, so that the War of the Separatists kind of dies down, which, with that being said, that kind of shows that Palpatine will use the other Sith Lords to gain power and to find as much power as he can to rise to the Emperor.
Thank you to everyone for joining us for our mythology segment. We will turn the microphone over to the next group.
Hello, this is Jonathan from Coffee with Kenobi, and today I'm here joined with my co-hosts Leo, Isaac, and Matt. Our topic for today's show is the ways the Emperor was able to turn Anakin Skywalker to the dark side of the Force. Our first point that we're going to discuss is Palpatine befriending Anakin when he was such a young age.
During Episode 2, Palpatine has meetings with Anakin throughout the whole movie, and over time, Palpatine reveals more and more about himself to Anakin.
Anakin didn't have many role models in his life. Palpatine became a father to him in a sense. Palpatine made himself somebody Anakin could go to for guidance.
Because of a lack of a father in his life, Obi-Wan Kenobi being the exception, he was left to wander without reason in the sense of morals. Since he looked up to Palpatine, he let him take control over him and use the dark side.
Our next point is Palpatine feeding into Anakin's ego, telling him that he thinks that he's the best Jedi and more powerful than Master Yoda, one of the strongest Force users ever.
During the meetings in Episode 3, Palpatine is listening to Anakin's problems and giving him something to lean on to.
Being that Palpatine is Anakin's role model, Palpatine sees this as Anakin's basically plays on Anakin's heartstrings, pushing him back and forth like putty in his hands.
The ways that Palpatine manipulated Anakin were very low but fitting for his personality. It made him think in a way that he was God, more powerful than any other Jedi, when in reality, he wasn't even fully trained yet.
It's a good point. And then on the next agenda, Palpatine encouraging Anakin to do certain acts and encourages him that he should do what he wants.
At the beginning of Revenge of the Sith, Palpatine encourages Anakin to cut off Count Dooku's head by saying, "Do it. It'll help put an end to the war. Do it." Anakin trusts him even though this is not the way Jedis do things.
At the point of Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, Anakin has become a fence-sitter. The good and the evil, the light and the dark side, are tearing Anakin apart on the inside. It was only a matter of time before he turned to one side, and then in the end, back to the other.
Also in the scene where Anakin finds out Chancellor Palpatine was the Sith that the Jedi were looking for, Palpatine asks him if he wants to kill him, with Anakin answering, "I certainly would like to." At this moment as well, Palpatine respects what Anakin would decide in doing and doesn't tell him not to kill him because, again, Palpatine encourages Anakin to do what he feels is right.
After the scuffle with Mace Windu and Chief Palpatine, the newly proclaimed Emperor sent Anakin to Mustafar to fight the Separatist leaders. And he successfully does so, and after he is visited by Padme and Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Our next point is Palpatine manipulating and lying to Anakin. The next... because Palpatine is a master of manipulation and deceiving people, and this is prevalent throughout the entirety of the saga.
Palpatine deceives Anakin by telling him that the Jedi are only causing chaos and preventing peace. Because of this, Anakin goes and kills younglings and other Jedi.
Palpatine convinces Anakin the only way to save Padme is using the dark side of the Force, which may be true, but the Emperor never anticipated on saving Padme, as she would only be a roadblock on turning Anakin to the dark side.
Next is talking about Palpatine backing up Anakin and respecting Anakin.
Palpatine appoints Anakin to the Jedi Council, and he wants him to keep an eye on the Jedi Council. When Anakin is on the Jedi Council and doesn't become a Jedi Master, he is furious. He's on the Council, but he isn't a Master. He goes to Palpatine and vents his frustration and anger.
That's a great point, Leo, because I was going to say something along the same lines as well. And this also ties in with Palpatine boosting Anakin's ego. Because of Palpatine appointing Anakin as his Jedi representative to the Council, him telling him that he's on the Council and he'll become a Master. So he's walking into the Council expecting this, since this is what Palpatine told him. So when it doesn't happen, he is more upset and furious about it than he normally would be. He'd still be upset, obviously, but not that upset.
I think that's a good point, John. I think that this is one of the defining points where Anakin gets pushed over to the dark side, and this is what sways him.
Being that Palpatine is the father figure to Anakin, this gives the opportunity for Palpatine to manipulate Anakin into joining the dark side and doing mischievous things.
Palpatine finished off Mace Windu, assisting in turning Anakin to the dark side. It also makes it easier to trust him since he was saved from the Jedi.
And our final topic of discussion is Palpatine revealing himself as the Sith Lord Darth Sidious to Anakin after dropping huge hints on more than one occasion throughout the prequel trilogy.
Palpatine listens to Anakin's dreams and sees that his wife will die. He gives him advice and tells him that the Sith can grow so strong that it will preserve life.
By Palpatine revealing the mysteries of the power of the dark side, Anakin uses his feelings to follow instead of his judgment.
When Palpatine fights off Yoda, the smartest Jedi yet, it shows his immense power and how he can easily win against the Jedi.
And now, to leave you guys off with some questions, we have, did Palpatine know that he was going to get killed by Darth Vader, but didn't care that he'd sacrifice himself? Because essentially, he's doing it to build the Empire and let the Sith rule again.
And our last question is, depending on your point of view, what ties a person to the light or dark side? What causes them to turn and be with one or the other?
Thank you guys for taking the time to listen to our portion of Coffee with Kenobi. Until next time, may the Force be with you.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
There's no one here